Hello everyone, this is Brian Tracy and welcome to today's webinar, 5 Steps to Planning and Publishing a Best-Selling Book. Now we're going to get started right away to make the very best use of the limited time that we have, but I'd love to hear from everyone who's here, so go ahead and type your name, where you're from in the chat. I want to thank you for being here today. This is going to be a very valuable use of your time. Now, before we get started, I want to stress the importance of having your complete attention over the next hour. I don't want you to miss anything. This just may be the most important hour you spend this week, this month, or even this year, because it could change your life in ways that you could never imagine. In the last week alone, I've spoken to 3 people whose lives were profoundly changed forever as a result of going through this material with me in the months and years in the past. And this can happen to you as well. So please mute your phone notifications, close the door to your office, grab a pen and paper, and get ready to take some notes. I promise you that over the next hour, I'm going to reveal to you my proven process for planning any book from start to finish. Once you get all these planning elements into place, it'll be so easy for you to write and edit and publish your book, you'll be able to do it in 90 days or less. I've used this very process to write over 80 books, many of which have been translated into dozens of languages and become bestsellers not only in the U.S. but worldwide. This planning process is the reason I'm able to write 4 books a year, year after year. Now, I can't tell you how many people have approached me over the years and said how badly they want to write a book, but they say, I don't know how to get started, or I'm struggling to finish it. And I simply share this process with them. And they're able to start and finish their books, and they're absolutely amazed. I remember having a half-hour conversation on a walk in the park with one of the top people in the country, and he said, I've always wanted to write this book. And I said, here's how to do it. He just shook his head. He couldn't believe it was that simple, and within 90 days, his book was finished. Within another 90 days, it was on the market. It became a bestseller, and it literally changed his life and made him a fortune. Today, he's worth more than $50 million, which was triggered and springboarded off of starting and writing and completing the book. So I'm going to reveal that process to you today. Now, before we dive in, I have a very important question for you. If I promise to give you great content, do I have your permission to take 10 minutes to give you a fantastic offer for you to consider at the end of today's webinar? If that sounds fair to you, go ahead and type yes in the chat. Oh my, oh my, I had no idea how many people are that enthusiastic about taking advantage of this offer. So many yeses. That's wonderful to hear from you. Thank you. Now, this is all up to you. I won't share this offer unless I give valuable information that you can apply in your life right now. Again, only with your permission. I can see some of you typing yes now. Again, wow, so many of you. Oh, great. Thank you so much. Now, I know when you register for this training, I promised to give you a free gift, and it's a good one. It's a PDF I recently created, a toolbox of sorts that lists out the resources for everything you need to write and publish your first book. From word processing tools to editors to international publishing tips, and I'll reveal to you exactly what this gift is later on, as well as a link to download it. In addition, to say thank you for showing up today, I'm going to give you another gift. If you stick around through the end of today's webinar, I'm going to give you a copy of today's slides. You've committed to attending this webinar, and I want you to be able to use this information as often as you like, so keep an eye out for a link to download those slides later on. So, I'm here in the studio, and my team is here to help answer questions you have in the chat and at the end of my presentation. Just for sticking around to the end of the training, I'm not only going to give you these slides and an additional gift, but I'm also going to hold a Q&A at the end of today's webinar as well. So feel free to type any book writing questions you may have throughout this webinar, and my team will take them down for you. I'll get to as many of them as I can during the Q&A. Just remember to toggle your chat as a question on the left side of the chat so my team can flag your comment as a question, or else we might not see it. Okay, let's get started. As I mentioned, I've published more than 80 books, with more on the way. Although I have the process down to a science now, it was not always the case. I remember, I told you about my first book, I didn't know anything about the book. However, what I did was this, is when I decided to write a book, I went out to 2 or 3 bookstores. This was before Amazon, and I bought every book I could find on how to write a book. And there were books on a writer's time, and books on organizing yourself, and books on doing research, and books on structure, and books on editing and everything. And I read book after book after book. I probably studied book writing for 2 or 3 years before I actually sat down with my new computer and my new typing program, and I began to write the book, Maximum Achievement. And it was very, very difficult at the beginning, but you just have to persist. You just have to persist. You just have to keep pushing forward. Then, after I wrote my first book and I got that success, I wrote another book, and more after that. Now, after a while, I had people asking me, how do you write a book? They asked me that over and over, and I said, well, you just, sit down and you have an idea, and I began to try to explain it to them. I finally sat down, the heck with it. And I spent 2 or 3 hours laying out the process. I wrote it down, and I handed it out to anybody who asked. And I began to think about this process, and then I realized there was more and more to it. So I said to myself, well, I've got to formalize it. I've got to put it into a system. There's very few people who can write as many books as I do and have all of them become good sellers. So there must be something to it, because I'm no genius. I dropped out of high school. I failed high school English. So it's not like I'm a great natural writer. And I'm really busy as a speaker. So I started to write down the steps. And I said, well, first of all, you do this. Then you do that. And we'll talk about this in a couple of seconds. Now, a little disclaimer before we dive into this 5-step process. If you want to write a book, if you truly want to write a book and become a published author, then you have to write a book. You're going to have to put in the work. But I promise you, with this formula, you can learn to write a book. You can do it. In fact, take a moment and say that phrase out loud to yourself right now. I can do it. I can do it. I can do anything I put my mind to. If you put in the work, you can become an expert, and you can be successful, and you can monetize your expertise, and you can live a wonderful life. After all, that's exactly my motivation as well. So obviously you're here today because you have some desire to write a book and become a published author. But before we dive into content, I want to go over some reasons for writing a book that you may not have considered up to this point. For me, the biggest reason was to spread my message about subjects that I felt very passionate about. That's the first and most obvious reason to write a nonfiction book, an instructional book that gives people ideas on how to improve their life and work. It provides an opportunity for you to write and publish something on a subject that's important to you and that you will have for the rest of your life. You can express your creativity while sharing your message with other people. One of the universal laws of success, another book that I wrote, is the law of service. And it says, your rewards in life will be in direct proportion to the value of your service to others. The more you work, study, and develop your ability to contribute more to the lives and well-being of others, the better life you will have in all areas. Chances are, if you are passionate about a certain subject, other people are too. And by writing a book about that subject, you can help others in their own lives, and in turn, help yourself to achieve a more fulfilled life. Human beings are designed in such a way that we get our greatest joy in life when we know that we are helping to improve the lives of other people, when we're making a difference in the lives of other people. And although you can earn a lot of money with a book, it's not the money that you earn, it's the joy that you experience in your own life, knowing that other people have benefited from what you've provided to them. In addition, and this is great, writing a book is a skill you can master. This was one of the great turning points in my life when I was struggling, and I learned this incredible law of cause and effect, which says that for every effect in your life, there's a cause. It says that if you do the things that other successful people do, you'll get the same results. And I still remember I was shocked when I learned this. You mean I can learn anything I need to learn? Is that writing a book is just a skill, like typing with a keyboard or fishing or preparing breakfast? It's just a learnable skill. And you have the ability to learn anything you need to learn. There are no limits. And the more you learn, the more you can learn. The smarter you get, the smarter you get. It's the most incredible thing. People are always shocked when they realize that they have more potential than they ever dreamed possible if they simply apply themselves to learning and practicing that new skill. So just like riding a bicycle, writing a book is a skill that you can master with focused practice and repetition. And furthermore, writing a book is an instant credibility booster. From a business perspective, writing a book is the fastest way to gain credibility, establish yourself as an expert in your field, and build a professional reputation. It can also be used as a promotional item and a marketing tool for your business. Think about it. What sort of impression do you get when you meet someone who has become a published author? Without even knowing them, you might assume that if they were able to write an entire book and get it published, they must be an expert. I heard someone say this the other day, and I thought, wow, that's a beautiful summary. He said, what is the first part of the word authority? And he was pointing out that people who are recognized as authorities in their field are people who are paid much, much more than the average person, sometimes 5 and 10 times as much. They sell their products and services easier, more doors open up for them, and so on. And the first part of the word authority is the word author. If you are recognized as an author, immediately your esteem and respect in the eyes of other people go up. And the same can happen for you. So, do you want to know how to start your journey to success by using my proven 5-step book planning process to write and publish your first book? Type yes in the chat. Wow. I've obviously come to the right place because everybody is writing the word yes. I want to make sure that you are all energized and ready to change your lives by learning this success formula. Hey, I see even more responses coming through and people saying yes in the chat. So let's get going and move into the good stuff. So the first step when you begin your journey of writing a book, and in my opinion, the most important step is to plan. Plan, and plan some more. If you've been a follower of mine for a while, you've no doubt heard me talk about the 10-90 rule. This rule states that the first 10% of time that you take to plan your activities carefully in advance will save you 90% of the effort involved in achieving your goals later. The very act of thinking through and planning your work in advance will dramatically reduce the amount of time that it takes you to do the actual job. And this rule is exceedingly true when it comes to planning your future book. Your mind, your ability to think, plan, and decide is your most powerful tool for overcoming procrastination and increasing your productivity. The very act of thinking and planning unlocks your mental powers. It triggers your creativity. It increases your mental and physical energies. Why it's so important to start your book writing journey by planning. Every book I write begins with a plan. Over the years, I've used this planning process over and over again, and I promise you, it works every time. This planning process includes 5 phases, and we're going to dive into them right now. So get your pencils and pens ready to take some notes. Here are the 5 steps to my proven planning process for writing a book. Step 1 is to make the time and stick to it. Budget the time, put it aside, schedule it as if it was vital to your financial success. Step 2 is to choose a topic and title. What are you going to write about? Step 3 is to define your audience and exactly who you are writing for. Create a clear picture in your mind. So, step number 4 is to outline your book using my signature method, which I'm going to share with you today. And step number 5 is the mental down dump. So now that you know the 5 steps to plan and write your book, let's break them down. The first step, before you actually do anything, is to block off the time to work on your book. Ideally, you should have at least 3 designated time slots during each week when your sole focus is going to be working on your book. For example, Tuesday evening from 6 to 8, Thursday evening from 6 to 8, and Saturday morning from 9 to 11 a.m. I personally prefer to write first thing in the morning because it's when I am the freshest, I'm the sharpest, I'm the most alert. And so what I do is I turn off my phone, I turn off my computer, I turn off everything so that I can work in complete silence. All really successful writers schedule and budget their time, and then they discipline themselves to sit down and just write. And they write for that entire period of time. Now, many times you'll have to throw the stuff away. It's just not that good. But they're going to write for 2 hours, and they write for 2 hours. And they start to loosen up and become more and more fluent. And they start to think of more ideas and more words and more stories. And pretty soon it starts to flow like a river. And this happens for everyone. Now, what we know today is that 95% of everything that you do or don't do is determined by your habits. One of the great rules is form good habits and make them your masters. Now, here's the interesting thing is that good habits are hard to form, but easy to live with. Goethe, the German author, once said that everything is hard before it's easy. But anything that you do over and over again eventually becomes a habit, and then it becomes automatic. And it's easier and easier, like getting up and taking a shower and brushing your teeth and so on. It's easier and easier to do it. My friend Jim Rohn has this wonderful line. He said that anything that is easy to do is also hard to do. Anything that's hard to do is also easy to do. It just takes repetition over and over again. And once you have developed success habits, then your success is absolutely guaranteed. You'll find that most successful people in every field have automatic habits that they engage in. So I want you to take 30 seconds right now to jot down what 3 days or nights per week or mornings that you can dedicate yourself to working on your book. What times immediately come to mind? Feel free to share them in the chat now. Oh, by the way, one of the most important things that you have to have is a workplace, a workspace, a part of your home, your office, your apartment that is where you go to work. So when you go to that place, your mind changes and you say, this is when I work. The author Joyce Brothers, who was a struggling psychologist and became a bestseller and earned an enormous amount of money during her career, was on radio, television, interviewed, and so on. She said, when you sit down, you say, I will work now. I work now. And you just repeat that. This is my work time. I work now. And you put everything aside. Distractions are one of the greatest destroyers of your future and your career. So put away all distractions and just work now. So let's move on to step number 2. Is once you've set aside the time to work on your book, you need to choose a topic and a title. Start with a message, idea, or story that you really want to share with other people. Remember, people can feel, they can sense the emotion that you put into your writing. A book that has no emotion in it is of no interest. It's like boring. But something that you write that has emotion, something that you feel strongly about, actually comes out through the words, and it affects other people's emotions. So this must be something for which you have a passion, something you believe in. Ask yourself, what are you an expert on? What message do you have to share with the world? If someone were to ask you, what one subject in the world do you feel that you are better at than any other? And if you think about it, ask yourself, what has been responsible for your success in life to date? What do you like to talk about and learn about? What do people love to listen to you talk about and share with them? I mean, again, thinking carefully about what you're going to do before you do it is really important. And here's a tip. You must be an expert on your subject. You must know 10 additional words for every word you write, or the reader will know that you're talking off the top of your head. If you want to write on success, you must already be successful. If you write on money, you must already be rich. If you write on relationships, you must be happily married. So here's a quick action exercise. Grab your notepad and write down 3 potential topics for your book. Go ahead and take 30 seconds to a minute to do this now. Now, here's a way to determine a topic or a title. One of the things you do is you look around at the world today and you say, what are the biggest problems that are holding people back that I can help them with? What are the critical skills that a person would need to be more successful in a field that's important to me? A perfect example, which I mentioned before, is self-discipline. It is impossible to succeed at anything, anywhere in life, at any time, unless you have the discipline to get started and keep going, unless you have the discipline to take the steps necessary to do it. So that's a great subject, and it turns out to be a great subject. And when I mentioned it to the publisher, they said, that's perfect. It's exactly what we have decided, that there's a market for this. So give us a proposal. What would you put in the book? What would be the steps to develop self-discipline? And what would be the disciplines that you would then develop? And I wrote it down, and it sells thousands and thousands of copies every single month. And I know because every 3 months I get royalties from the publisher. So you should have written down now a few potential topics. Topics that you think are important, topics that you care about, topics that you know about. So go ahead and share one of them in the chat now. What's the topic? Type it in. Wow, there are quite a few responses coming through the chat. It's looking good so far. Only after you know your topic can you move on to the next planning step, step 3, deciding who you are writing for. You absolutely must define your target market before you begin writing. Now, I developed a very simple technique to determine my target market, and I said I want to write a book for which there are at least 1 million potential buyers. At least 1 million. I want to write broad subjects for which there are lots and lots of people, and something also that I know a lot about. And that's been my technique. So whether it's on time management or goal setting or relationships or strategic planning, I always think, are there more than 1 million potential readers for this? And this seems like a very simple technique, but it's quite astonishing because you don't have to have more than 2 or 3 or 5% of the audience buy the book for you to have a top seller. By the way, there's a special language that the publishers use, especially in New York, which is the top of the world. A bestseller is a book that gets onto one of the lists, and this book is in the top 10 or top 15. A top seller is a book that sells more than 10,000 copies. And so think about that. Say, well, I want to write a bestseller. Well, maybe 1 in 1,000 books would be a bestseller, and maybe 1 in 100 books will be a top seller. So just remember those two. Remember, publishers are kind of cold in that all they're concerned about is selling books. So the first question they want to know is, what is your subject and who is going to buy it and read it? And of course, we'll explain this in our program, but you always have to be able to tell them what else has been written that they've bought and read and why your book is superior. Now, here are some questions to help guide you and narrow down your target market and prospective audience. I encourage you to jot down answers to these questions as they come to you. But remember, I'm giving you these slides as a resource at the end of today's webinar, so don't worry if you're not able to write everything down. First of all, what is the age range of the prospective reader? What is the sex of your ideal reader? I've worked with mothers who were really busy at home, 2 or 3 kids, taking care of the family, and they wanted to write a story that would benefit their children. So they take their child's age range and their interest range and what they like to think about and talk about and do, and they write a story that's narrowly focused on a child between 4 years of a child's life, between 8 and 12 years old, and a subject that children at that age are really interested in. They like to learn about it and talk about it, and they focus on that, and they sell hundreds of thousands of copies because there's so many prospective children within that age range. So what is the sex of your ideal reader? What is the gender? What is the income and position of your reader? In other words, how much money do they earn? What kind of a job do they have? What kind of problems do they face in their work that your book can help them to solve? What kind of goals do they have that your book can help them to achieve? What is the level of education of your reader? There are some people who are only interested in reading books that are aimed at a higher level. Some people are interested in reading books that are basically page turners. And of course, 70% of successful books are nonfiction books. They're books about facts and figures and things to do to improve your life. Only 30% are fiction, and those are the ones that get all the attention in the newspapers and television and reviews and everything else. What is his or her level of family formation? Are they married or single? Do they have children or no children? Do they have boys or girls? Have they been married more than once? Are their children older or younger? Are they starting off their family, or has their family grown up and moved away? This is very important. What are the hopes, fears, and dreams of your reader? What do they think about? As we say, what keeps them awake at night? What are the desires and motivations of your reader? What are the things that will cause them to take action, and to take action immediately? Sometimes a book, like my book, Eat That Frog, and the subtitle is really important, 21 great ways to stop procrastinating and get more things done faster. And people read that title, which doesn't mean anything, but the subtitle is exactly what they want, and they buy thousands of copies. I was just talking to one of my clients who bought 1,000 copies for the people in his company. And then he had his human resources people design a one-day seminar built around overcoming procrastination and getting more things done faster. The first year that they taught that course in their company, they become the #1 company in their area, in the country, and their sales increased by 32%. He said it was absolutely amazing. So what are the interests and concerns of your reader? What bothers them? What worries them? What are they interested in learning about and talking about and finding out more information about? What are the problems that your reader has that your book will solve? Remember, every book can be a solution to a problem. And what are the frustrations that your book will take away? There's a rule in selling that says you don't go into the marketplace and find someone and convince them that they need your product. What you do is you identify a problem or difficulty that people want to solve or take away, and then you present the very best solution to that. You already deal with people who already need what you're talking about. So for you to write a book proposal for a literary agent or for a publisher, you'll have to be able to answer these questions. Otherwise, no one will consider publishing your book. Now, before we move on, though, I'd love to hear from you on what you think of what we've covered so far. Type yes in the chat box if you've learned something useful, and feel free to share what it is. Write it down, write it down. Remember, you may have an insight into book writing or title selection that can change the lives of the other people on this chat. Wow, lots of yeses and great sharing going on. You are a very, very smart group. It's interesting. People who are literary, people who like to read and who like to write, are the smartest people in our society. You find there's a direct relationship between people who read and write and people who don't. And the people who read and write earn an average over time of 5 and 10 times as much as the average person. So your responses are very encouraging to me and to everybody on this call. So I'm glad you're already learning, because we have a lot to cover still. Oh, and don't forget, I'll be giving you a copy of these slides at the end of today's webinar, so don't worry if you missed a few notes. Now, let's move on to step number 4. Once you've chosen your topic and selected a viable target market, the next step of the planning phase is to lay out your book. And this is something I have a very special recipe for. It's almost like a miracle recipe. It just causes people to do what the students do in that SMH, shaking my head, shaking my head. It's so simple. I have a proven methodology to lay out the content of your book, then to break it into chapters. My personal secret is I always break a book into 7, 12, or 21 chapters. These numbers seem to be magic numbers, and some of the most popular books in the world are books that are 7s, 12s, or 21s. I've got about 6 or 7 books that are 21s on sales, time management, personal development, hiring, career development, and so on. In fact, I just wrote 14 books for the American Management Association on 14 of the most popular management subjects, and every one are 21 chapters. And each of the 21 chapters, like a chain, goes from link to link to link, from the beginning to the end. And then I have books that are 12 chapters, and these are on personal success, personal development, sales, marketing, management. And then I have books that have 7 chapters, and these are more business-focused or shorter books on different parts of personal development. So I always say, okay, this will be 7, 12, or 21. And sometimes I will change in the middle of a book. Once or twice I have written a book with only 10 chapters, because after 10 chapters I would be plowing old ground. I would be writing on interesting subjects, but not as good as the first 10. Remember, less is more. Less is more when you're writing high-quality books. And then I say, all right, what will be the 7 logical titles or subjects that would flow one to the other in this book? If I were to look at the subject of my book, what are the 7 logical titles that should be included, and in what progression? Thinking in terms of a number of chapters forces you to decide what will be contained in each chapter and how each of the chapters will be organized in relationship to each other. Some years ago, I came up with this idea of 21s, and I saw that there were several books on the bookstands that were bestsellers, 21 ways to do this, 21 keys to that, and so on. So I picked a whole series of subjects that were quite complicated. One of them was called How to Stay in Love Forever. The other one is How to Hire and Keep the Best People, and about 20 others. And then I wrote down every step, and I came out with 25, 30, 40, 45 steps, and I condensed them all into 21 chapters. And then I wrote each of the chapters, as you'll learn how to do. And it's quite astonishing. They sell by the thousands, and they sell in multiple languages all over the world. And once you've gone through the process of laying out your book and you have this outline, you can begin placing specific ideas within each chapter, which means that you're ready for the final step in my 5-step book planning process. The final step of the book planning process is one of the most taxing, but so important in structuring your book for success. It's doing what I like to call a mental down dump. This step falls naturally after the chapter and outline step. After you have all your chapter titles, you can jot down every key point that you could think of that could possibly be included in each chapter. As you begin to write the points that should be included in each chapter, more ideas will occur to you. You'll often find yourself writing 2 or 3 and 4 pages of material with dozens of ideas that fall under the chapter heading. During this process, the mental down dump, you empty your brain of every possible thought and idea that could be included in your book. You do a mental down dump and you take a pad of paper, not a computer. You don't type it, you write it by hand. This is so important, and this is because when you write it by hand, it's called a neuromotor physical activity, which means that you use your mind, neuro, and your emotions and your kinesthetic sense to write it down on paper, and you write down everything that you can think of or that you could ever think of that goes in there. Every quote, every example, every story, every idea that you can, you just write and write and write and write and write and write and write. And when you think of new ideas, you go back to it. When I go through this process, it takes anywhere from 5 to 8 hours of hard work. And you'll be exhausted once you finish. And it takes tremendous discipline to get started the first time. But this process will help you immeasurably, especially as you move forward into the writing phase, which I cover in detail in my course, How to Write a Book and Become a Published Author. When I am working on a book, I'll tell my wife, I say, well, I'm going to go and do my down dump. And she rolls her eyes and she says, oh, close the door, because she knows that this, for me, is the hardest of all work, is to get those ideas, which I've gathered in my mind over time, and get them down on paper. And I will write and write and write and write, idea after idea, and I will come out after the end of it exhausted, burned out, but now I have all the building materials necessary to write the book, and it always works. So let's recap my 5-step book planning formula. Step 1, make the time and stick to it. Step 2, choose a topic and title. And by the way, be prepared to change, to chop, to find something different or better. Don't get married to your first idea. Number 3 is define your audience. Think carefully of the people that you like and care about and who you want to help and whose lives you want to improve. Number 4, outline your book. And number 5, the mental down dump. These are the magic steps to multiply your ability to write. Remember, Goethe said, everything is hard before it's easy. The first time that you do this process or cook a new dish in the kitchen with a recipe, it's extraordinarily difficult. It requires tremendous discipline and resolution, but once you've done it more than once, it becomes normal and natural. You like breathing in and breathing out. So now you know my personal 5-step planning process that I've used to publish over 80 books of my own. What do you think? Did you find that what I shared was valuable to you? I want you to take 10 seconds and type one thing that you're going to do today that you learned from this webinar so far. Share it in the chat now, and remember, action is everything. It's not positive resolutions or good intentions. It's taking action and taking action immediately. What are you going to do? What action are you going to take immediately after this program, and that will launch you toward writing and publishing your own book? So this is the end of the content of our program today, but don't worry, because we still have lots of information to cover, including the Q&A, where I'll be answering some of your questions. Some of the best content for you comes from the question and answer part of the program. Now remember, this is an overview of my 5-step planning formula for writing a book. But obviously, we had limited time. There are many other phases of writing a book. There are entire university semesters on writing a book that only cover a small part, and including the actual writing, editing, and publishing itself. What I'd like to do next is to talk to you about how you can write a book from start to finish, including getting it publisher ready with some in-depth training. But first, type the word yes in the chat if you are truly ready to write your book and you want to learn the exact steps you need to become a published author. Did I earn the right to spend 10 minutes talking about how we can work together on your book? Type yes in the chat if you think that that was fair for the training that we did today. Wow, that's wonderful. Thank you very much for your responses. Before I talk about my program, which I promise will blow you away in value from not only what you get, but for how little of an investment that you have to get started with my special offer. Before that, I want to show you what some of my students have done once going through this step-by-step program I have for you. Let's take a look at some of the letters and emails that we get. Here's one. It says, if you are serious about turning talk into action, then this is the course for you. After years of talking about writing a book and getting absolutely nowhere, I decided to sign up for this course. The amazing tips and techniques Brian shared were the difference that made the difference for me. My first book was published in April 2017, and I'm currently working on my next. Thank you, Brian. I am forever grateful. And that's the email from Craig Collinson, one of our students. Here's another wonderful quote. Sherry Wurgler says, your material has given me a guide for structuring and organizing my book. This program also does an outstanding job of offering key traits as to how to make my book stand out among others and to pursue public speaking. By the way, here's an important point. Whatever this course costs, it doesn't cost that much, but the money is really not the most important thing. What's most important is your life and your time. Your life and your time are the most precious things you have. If you can save weeks and months and even years in getting to the same level of accomplishment by writing and publishing a book, It's worth a fortune to you. And I've had so many people tell me about how many months and even years they've struggled, and finally they learned this system, and they saved themselves years of hard work. Do you know that 82% of adults dream of writing a book someday, and less than 1% will ever try? And when you ask them, why didn't you just write? They said, I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know where to start. I didn't know the first step and the second step, so I just kept procrastinating. And I procrastinated for years and years. I've seen people who've written a book. One of the best-selling authors in the English language wrote his first book at the age of 42. And he worked and worked and worked at other jobs. And he finally wrote his book at 42. And the book became so successful, he became one of the most successful authors in history. His name was Bernard Shaw. And he became so successful, it was written up, he had stage plays and movies. Even today, he's studied in all the universities, but he didn't get to his first book until he was 42. He had the book in him, but he couldn't get it out. So before we dive into everything that's included in this program, I want to be clear. As I mentioned before, writing a book takes hard work. This process is not for people who are looking to publish a book as a business card, and you won't be able to do it in a day. This program is only for people who are willing to put in the work and who have a story that they feel passionate about sharing with the world. You'll see there's a small investment in this program, but when you follow my step-by-step program, you can expect real results. To get the most value out of this program, you're going to need to commit 2 to 3 hours a week for the next 5 weeks, but you'll probably want to commit more time once you get started. Remember, the key to success has always been to get started and keep going. So without further ado, let me describe what's included in my esteemed and recently updated training course, How to Write a Book and Become a Published Author. Week 1, How to Plan Your Book. You'll learn who to think about when you select your topic, and it's not yourself. You'll learn how to ensure you choose a target market with profit potential, which makes your book more desirable to publishers. You'll learn why you must first get off the computer when you create your book outline. You'll learn the first thing to do when you're deciding on a topic for your book, and you'll learn how to ensure that your book stands out from others on similar topics so publishers want to publish it and readers want to buy it. Now, during week 2, you'll learn how to write your book. You'll learn what to do before you even get started writing. This will streamline the writing process so that you get through it faster than you thought possible and more enjoyably. You'll learn a process for getting your book written without actually writing it yourself. You'll learn strategies for organizing your book into chapters and your chapters into palatable sections. You'll learn how to make your words jump off the page so readers want to devour them. And you'll learn exactly how to become an expert in your field, even if you don't know anything about your subject when you start. You'll learn the secrets of developing expertise in any subject that you think is interesting or important. Week number 3, How to Edit Your Book. Michael Crichton, author of Jurassic Park, said, "Books aren't written, they're rewritten." We will teach you an important strategy that has nothing to do with writing for being more alert, creative, and fluent. You'll learn how to create a schedule for editing your book so that you get it done as quickly as possible. You'll learn the several stages of editing and the role each one plays in turning your rough work into a detailed work of art. You miss one of these ideas and you'll make the editing process much more painful and longer than it has to be. You'll learn how to save yourself tons of aggravation by finding the right editor so that you won't waste time and money on a bad one. And you'll learn my 10-step plan for successful book creation. In week number 4, you'll learn how to market your book. You'll learn how to promote your book for maximum profits. You'll learn what you can do to turn your book into a license to print money. Really, why sell it once when you can earn profits from it again and again? You will learn the single reason why you can be rich, even when most authors are broke and starving. And that's true. About 95% of authors and creative people are starving. You'll learn how to use the secret that large companies use every day to stand out from the crowd and to be remembered. You'll learn the 4 keys to marketing strategy and the 7 ingredients in my marketing mix. And you'll learn how to negotiate your best deal, including ebook rights, digital rights, and audio and video rights. In week number 5, you will learn a step-by-step process for writing and publishing an ebook, the differences between traditional publishing and ebooks, and what they mean for you. You will learn the basic steps for formatting an ebook. This is strikingly different from formatting a traditional book. By the way, when ebooks came out, long after I had written my first books, I went out and I got everything I could do, exactly what I had done for writing books, and I read it and studied and took notes, and I developed a formula, which we teach you here, on how to write and publish an ebook. And I decided I would do this in 24 hours. So I picked a subject that I knew something about, and then I went out and I got every small book or large book on publishing an ebook, and I produced the book and put it onto Amazon and had it out within 24 hours. It was quite astonishing. I had to prove it to myself before I taught it to you. You'll learn how to use an ebook as a promotional device, including 1 proven strategy for getting people to buy from you. And you'll learn guidelines for pricing your ebook so that lots of people buy it. People should like the subject so much that they don't care about the price. They just order it immediately. And all throughout this course, by the way, I'll be checking in with you to make sure that you are on your way to completing your book with dedicated accountability and videos and exercises. This is one of the most important things that you have. Almost every successful writer had someone who what we like to call is the director of nudge. They continue to nudge them to move them forward on the process. By the way, you have lifetime access to this course. So don't worry if you miss a week or you need more time to complete a lesson. You can just keep going back. In addition, when you purchase this online training course, you'll also gain access to these 14 bonuses valued at more than $2,100. Number 1 bonus, a fully comprehensive 155-page course workbook. This workbook includes course action guides for each of the 4 video lessons to help you stay on track, as well as other extras, including, number 2, a sample author questionnaire. Use this author questionnaire from publishing giant Amicom, American Management Association, to prepare and position your book proposal. It includes the actual questions you should be prepared to answer for publishers. This has been worth its weight in gold for me. I've sold so many books to so many publishers using this questionnaire, which I fill out and send back. It just makes me happy whenever I think of it, because the publishers, like the one I told you about earlier, the biggest publisher in the world, came back and said, this is a beautiful proposal. It answers every question that we have. Number 3, you'll get copies of my book proposals. You'll get actual submitted copies of my accepted book proposals for the book How Leaders Lead, for the book Get Over It and Get On With It, and for the book Speak to Win, including market overviews, unique selling concept, book content summaries, and even more. You'll sort of like fill in the blanks. Number 4 bonus that you'll receive is an online promotion guide. This guide from Amicom details the do's and don'ts for online promotion of your book, including how to use the primary online marketing tools and social media platforms, and a publication countdown checklist. And you cannot get this unless you are a published author by Amicom. They won't send it out to you. It's not available anywhere. And because I make it available to you at no cost. Number 5 bonus that you'll receive is a new writing and publishing toolbox. This PDF is a cheat sheet of all the tools that you should be using and all the people that you should be contacting to get your book written and published. It includes a dedicated section for international publishing resources as well. And surprise, this is the free gift I'll be giving you access to today. As promised, to say thank you for showing up today, I'm going to give you early access to my brand new writing and publishing toolbox. If you can't wait any longer to download it, click here and scroll down to where you see Writing and Publishing Toolbox. But don't close your browser. We still have so much more information to cover, including the live Q&A. Number 6, you get a new intro to fiction writing ebook. Although many of the lessons from this course can be directly applied to writing any book, writing fiction requires a different kind of creative approach. This ebook will give you an overview of how writing fiction differs from writing nonfiction and how you should approach it differently. Number 7, a 2-part book writing masterclass Q&A. In these 2 previously recorded Q&A sessions, I answer the questions of several aspiring authors like yourself. This Q&A will answer just about any question you could have about writing a book and getting published. Number 8, how to write a book CD. This is a 74-minute audio CD that will teach you how to transform subjects you're passionate about into literary works of art, how to organize your thoughts clearly before you begin writing, and how to find the right publishing house for you. Number 9, you'll get the Power of Branding CD. This is a 69-minute audio CD that teaches you to stand out from your competitors so that you can sell more of your book at higher prices and dominate your market. You will learn to market your personal brand so that you can get your message to the masses. Number 10, you get the Magical Marketing CD. With this 1-hour CD, you will learn to identify your perfect customer and then hit the emotional hot buttons that account for 80% of all buying decisions. Number 11, how to become a published author CD. Learn the art and science of getting published with this 79-minute audio CD. Learn how to select an attention-grabbing title, find an agent, find a publisher, and get the highest advance payment possible. Number 12, 21 Great Ways to Become a Sales Superstar CD. Get on the path to becoming a sales superstar with this 76-minute CD. Build mega credibility, get customers' attention, close more sales, and establish relationships with your customers that lead to sale after sale. Number 13, how to prepare a powerful presentation DVD. Learn how to grab and keep your audience's attention, arouse interest and excitement from your audience, and create desire for your product. It's a formula that works, and you learn it here. Number 14, how to write a book members-only group. You'll also get a personal invitation to my members-only mastermind group where I'll post discussion questions, tips, and other valuable information. Plus, you can interact with other members to share ideas and get your most pressing questions answered immediately. You can even peer review each other's work. And here's an exclusive bonus only for the people who are on this webinar right now. When you finish your book, as you will, I will personally write a testimonial for you that you can attach to your materials to go to literary agents and publishers that can make all the difference between whether or not they look at your proposal seriously. Let me tell you a great story. I got a letter from a would-be author some years ago, and she'd written a book on overcoming procrastination, which is my most popular selling book as well. And she said, would I please write something nice about her book, because she cannot get anyone to publish her book, and she thinks it's really good. So I said, okay, because I always want to help other people. So I said, okay, and so I wrote her a nice testimonial about how good the book was. I read it through and so on. And I sent it off to her, and she sent me a little note saying, thank you so much for the testimonial. I didn't hear from her again for 4 years. And then she wrote back, and she said, I'm so sorry that I did not follow up with your generous testimonial. But let me tell you what happened. She said, I had just about given up. Was on the verge of throwing everything in the wastebasket. My literary agent said she couldn't find a publisher. And I went back with your testimonial to my literary agent, and they said, this can make all the difference. She took this testimonial, attached it to her manuscript, and went to a publisher. And the publisher said, if Brian Tracy, who's the best-known author on this subject, says that this is a good book, we will publish it. And they signed a contract, they gave her an advance, they published it. The book became a big seller, and it sold and sold, and she wrote subsequent books. She was booked as a seminar speaker and paid thousands of dollars to do seminars and workshops. She said, you transformed my life at the very minute that I was about to give up with your testimonial, and made my entire career. So thank you, thank you, thank you. So whenever you have finished your book, you simply send it to me as a special bonus for the people on this teleseminar, and I will write a testimonial for you that you can attach to all your materials. There are many of the best-selling books in the world became bestsellers after I wrote a testimonial which they put on the front cover of the book and sent it out to different publishers. And we can do the same thing for you. So let's recap the special offer I have for you today. First, my How to Write a Book and Become a Published Author virtual training course, which has a value of $997 on its own. In addition, you'll get access to 14 bonuses, which we just went through, including copies of my own personal book proposals, an Introduction to Fiction Writing ebook, and access to members-only mastermind group, and so much more, all of which have a total value of $2,200. The total value of everything I've shown you and explained to you and described to you today is $3,197, but it's yours today for only $997. But I'll make this offer even better for you today since you're attending this live training with me personally. If you promise that when you enroll today, that when you have success as an author like my many other students have, and publish your book, that you will contact me and share your story with me. If I can use your success as a case study in the future, I'm going to reciprocate today for the next 25 people only, and only before this webinar ends today, I'm going to take off an additional $500 for you so that you can get access to everything I've just showed you today for only $497. That's it. For $497, you'll get access to the full training course, all the bonuses, and the members-only mastermind group at a discount of 84% off the total value. You'll have lifetime access, as well as my full 30-day money-back guarantee. You simply can't beat that for value. But look at that. Literally, as I'm speaking, sales are flying into the cart. So if you want to be one of the 25 people that gets to take advantage of my success story discount, you'll have to act fast. We're about to start the Q&A, and I cannot guarantee that the $500 savings will last. So click that button you see near the chat to enroll in the program, and don't let anyone else beat you to the punch. Remember, life rewards those who take action. So take action now. All right, we're going to get started with the Q&A. Remember, we'll be sharing a link to download the slides once this Q&A is complete. My team is sitting here and has gathered some of your questions throughout the presentation, so I'll do my best to address as many as I can in our limited time left together. Here's the question. My biggest problem with writing a book is choosing a relevant topic. Will your program help me with these issues? Well, one of my favorite answers to that comes from the movie Stand By Me with Johnny Cash, and the music publisher asks him, if you had been hit by a car and you were laying there on the street and someone came up to you and said, what one message would you leave to the world? If you could only leave one message, what would it be? And I love that because I think that's a great way of approaching your writing the book on the relevant topic. What is the one message that if you could only leave this one message that would help or improve the lives of other people, what would it be? And focus on that. Sometimes just deciding that is the hardest part because once you have that, suddenly the dam breaks and you start to have all kinds of ideas on how to write about and explain that topic. So give that a try. And Sometimes this question will cause the dam to break, and my program will help you with these issues more than anything else that you'll ever find. Here's another question. The aspiring author market is more crowded today than ever. Do you have recommendations on how to stand out and be unique with my message? Well, throughout this program, from beginning to end, there are dozens of unique ideas that you can use to stand out in any market at all. Remember, it doesn't matter how many people are writing books. There's always lots of people writing books. Hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of people are writing books. And every successful author has to stand out in writing books, and we will show you how to do it so that people will look at it. Let me give you an example. A literary agent, one of the top in the country, told me that she got a proposal from a physical fitness specialist named Susan Powder some years ago. And she wrote a book, and she named the title of the book Power. And she sent it through to the literary agent, and the literary agent said, I don't need any more information than this. It's Power, how to unlock all of your physical and mental capabilities. She sent that out to 3 publishers. All 3 publishers raised their hands and offered an advance, just with the title of the book and the subtitle. So it's not as difficult as you can imagine. And the book went on, by the way, to become a bestseller. Here's another question that's come up, and it's, what can I do when I get to the write phase of my book and I'm faced with writer's block? Do you cover this in the training? Well, it's interesting about writer's block, and I mentioned it a long time ago, is that with writer's block, the way that professional writers throughout the centuries have overcome it is they just write. They sit down with a piece of paper and they discipline themselves to write. Sometimes they will write the words, I overcome writer's block and write beautiful material every day. And they'll write that just like in class where you were forced to write down a sentence over and over again. And that's what they did. And so what they did is they just write and write and write and write. They'll write a single subject. Sometimes they'll just write a single sentence over and over again. And at a certain point, their minds open up and they start to write and write and write and write. Sometimes they will do this 2 or 3 days in a row. They will write 2,000 words, sort of like a mantra, and every morning they'll get up and write 2,000 words, and they don't care if it's great writing or poor writing, and at a certain point, the dam breaks. At a certain point, they start writing more and more and better and better. Now remember, we only have 25 success story bonuses available, and they're going very quickly. If you're worried about missing out on content, don't worry. You'll be able to hear the Q&A while you're going through the checkout process. Remember, if you promise to let me use you as a case study, I'll grant you access to this course, valued at more than $3,100, for just $497. So don't wait, act now. Here's a question. I'm a good writer, but would probably still need an editor. And by the way, all publishers will edit your book. They will have experts go through it to clean it up. So that's an automatic part of publishing. What are the steps to take after the book is written for editing, copywriting, and publishing? And I'll tell you what I do. It's a 5-write process. Is once I have written the book, I go through it word for word, line for line, 5 more times, and clean it up every single time. And then I turn it over to the publisher, and the best compliment that you will get is they will say, this is ready to go to press. This is not one of these books like, I call it throw up in a box. This is a book that is polished and polished and polished and is ready to go to press. All we need to do is clean up a couple of sentences and commas and semicolons and paragraphs. Here is another question, is what are the benefits of working with a publisher versus self-publishing? The greatest benefit of working with a publisher is that the publisher has access to every bookstore and every outlet and every Amazon and every online facility in the country and the world, and can get your book out to an enormous number of people virtually overnight when the book is published. If you publish yourself, you can actually put your book on Amazon and it will get out to a certain number of people, but until you promote it, until you somehow explain to the market that this book is available, nobody will buy it. So working with a publisher is always superior, and it's always better to pay whatever price in times of work and effort and writing and rewriting to have a publisher, because then you hand it off to them, as most of the successful writers do, and you never think about it again. They will take care of it from there. However, many of the most successful writers in the world have been unable to get a publisher for the first time, and so what they do is they follow the self-publishing process, which we teach to you, and get the book and make it available, and then they go through every single technique that's ever been developed to get people to come and try the book. Sometimes they will offer the first 1, 2, 3 chapters free. Sometimes they will go on to chat online and tell people about the book that they've written and encourage them to go to their site and to pick it up. And we'll teach you all these things. Another question is, one of the things I struggle with most in writing is setting a timeline and staying accountable. Do you have accountability tips and or suggested number of pages I should write per day? Well, we've talked about this at great length, and the most important thing is to write down your schedule. Write down specifically when you are going to start working, and then discipline yourself to sit down at that time and begin working, and work for the amount of time that you have promised to yourself. And in the course that we're talking about, we give you a whole series of tips and ideas and numbers of pages, as we've talked about, that you should write each day. Some people write preferably a number of pages. Some people simply write a number of words, which is much more easy to monitor. My team has just told me that we've already sold 20 of the success story bonuses. So if you're going to take advantage of this offer, you have just minutes left to do so. This $500 savings is only going to be available until the end of the live training. Here's another question, is what are the best tools to use for marketing my book? Well, this is the greatest question of all, because no matter what your product is, they say, you're in the marketing business. And your job is to continually think about who would be the very best person for the most important message that is in your book, and then to keep focusing on those very best clients and do it every day. Go to bookstores, go to networking events, look on Amazon and look at all the other sites that have information on writing, and keep looking for a hook of some kind. I remember when Ken Blanchard was bringing out his book, The 1 Minute Manager, he worked for 6 months and couldn't sell any books until finally he got one television station that interviewed him, and they had one hook that caused the book to start selling and caused other television stations to book them, then caused a major publisher to publish them, and it made him rich and famous. So you just keep trying different things and you will find exactly the right combination. Here's another question. I am an aspiring professional speaker and entrepreneur. Will taking your course help me to boost my authority and credibility as a business professional? Wow, is this ever a great question? I am so amazed at what happens with people when they write a book. People who are even poor speakers, people who even have a limited message, once they write a book and it has a nice cover and people read it and they get some value from it, they start to think that you must be an intelligent, interesting person that I want to put in front of my audience. I remember many years ago as a speaker, before I even wrote my first book, is they had a one-day conference and they charged hundreds of dollars for people to attend, and they had 1,000 people there. And there was me as a speaker, and there were several other people who were writers. And the writers had become bestsellers. And each of these writers got up and gave a speech, and it was quite astonishing. Their speeches were terrible. They were broken up, they were unclear, and yet people gave them applause. They bought their books. They were booked as speakers for the next 3 to 5 years, even though their speaking ability was not very good, but they had a published book that they could hold up and wave in their hand, and people, almost like lemmings, went to the back of the room to buy the book because they had written the book. So here's the last question. I have invested in programs before, and at $997, I was worried about the price, but at $497, I'm about to jump on it. How do I know that this is right for me before I jump in? Well, in business, and I speak to hundreds of companies and thousands of people each year, I always repeat the same thing. The only question that counts is, does it work? Does it work? Is this going to get me the result or benefit that I want? And how sure can I be that it will work? Well, fortunately, this process has been taught now to thousands of people all over the world, and they all say that it works. Nobody has ever said to us, this process doesn't work. The only question is how quickly do they use it? People who've wanted to write books for years suddenly find that within a few months they have a written book, and the book is out, and the publishers are looking at it and publishing it and distributing it. I've spoken to so many people who've actually published books that have gone worldwide after years of thinking about writing a book because of this system. Remember I said that the key to success is to learn from the experts. And what you are learning here is what I have spent my entire life learning and applying, and it works. As my friend Harvey McKay once said about my material, it works, it works, it works. You actually get the results that we promise. That's the last question that we have time for today. And my team is letting me know that orders are flying into the court, and we are sold out of the initial 25, but we're going to open up 15 more spots if you want to get in at this moment in this special bonus at the special $497 price point. Remember, you can have complete confidence in your decision to invest in yourself today because you have my 100% rock-solid satisfaction guarantee, which we have offered for years and years. Take your time to enjoy the course and put the proven strategies to work for you in your life and business. If for any reason or no reason at all you're not completely satisfied with your product, just let us know within 30 days of purchasing the course, return the CDs and DVDs, and we will issue you a full 100% product refund, less shipping. The virtual course is no longer refundable after 30 days of purchase. No weasel clauses or hidden meanings here. If you're not happy within 30 days, then neither are we. My friendly staff will cheerfully return your money and we'll still be friends. That's it. In fact, I always think of a program like this as going to a restaurant. The restaurant makes a promise. If you come to our restaurant, we will serve you delicious food. And if we don't serve you delicious food, you shouldn't have to pay. Well, we feel the same thing, is if you try our program and you're not happy, you shouldn't have to pay, and you don't have to pay. You have 30 days to decide. Our time together is coming to an end, so I want to leave you with one final thought. The truth is, everyone has a book in them. Everybody has had experiences that they can share with the world to make an impact. And when you write a book, I can say from experience that you truly don't know the impact it's going to have on people's lives. Let me tell you a great story. In my business seminars, I had this gentleman call from New Zealand. He wanted to attend the seminar, and could he bring 8 people from New Zealand to San Diego? And of course, if you're selling tickets to seminars, you say yes to 8 purchases. So he showed up with himself, his wife, and 6 of his executives. They were kind of like working people because this is a trucking business. His story was tear-jerking. He was a truck driver when he read my book, and he underlined as he went through the key points, and he realized he could never be more than a truck driver if he was driving a truck for someone else and earning wages. So the first goal he set as a result of reading my book was to own his own truck, because then he could sell his services and he could earn about double for the same number of miles, because he could basically contract out to other trucking companies. So it took him a year. He cut back his expenses, he moved to a smaller home, he saved his money, and he saved enough to be able to buy a truck. Today, he owns 350 trucks. He has 1,000 staff. He's the biggest shipper in the country of New Zealand. He's a multi-millionaire today, and he's one of the humblest, nicest guys that you'll ever meet. And he said he owed it all to coming across that book as a truck driver and reading it at truck stops as he drove around. Can you imagine that? And I've heard that kind of story. It's the best story I can think of. I heard that kind of story 1,000 times from people all over the world that a person writes. It happened to this gentleman, and it can happen for you. You just have to make the choice to begin today. Oh, and remember, you get the slides from today's webinar just by clicking on the button in the chat. You should do that now because this page won't be up forever. Remember, when you promise that when you enroll today and when you have success, like my other students have had, that you will contact me and share your story with me. If I can use your success as a case study in the future, I am willing to reciprocate today for the next 15 people only, and only before this seminar ends today, to take off an additional $500 for you so that you can get access to everything I showed you today for only $497 one time. That's it. You get the full training course, all the bonuses, the discount of nearly 90% off the value for just $497, and you have access as long as you want, as well as my full 30-day money-back guarantee. You simply can't beat that. But literally, as we are speaking, the sales are continuing to fly in. So make sure to act now, because we're about to end this webinar, and your chance to get the best offer I've ever given on this course, plus the best bonuses I've ever offered, will disappear. This won't last. The price will eventually go up, and the bonuses will go away. You have nothing to lose, so click that button that you see near the chat, and I'll see you on the inside.